ones goodbye. Now our time is coming, and it is not the time to cry. Fight the war. Fight the war. Fight the war. Oh, who cares why we're fighting? It's about the fight. Let the writers writing settle wrong from right. In a time of conflict, when the bullets fly, in the space of seconds, a life you cannot buy. Face the facts before you, face the simple truth. We're hopelessly outnumbered, it's tragic but it's true. Make your last formation, take the final road. Now it's time for endings, now it's time to go. Fight the war. Oh, fight the war. Fight the war. Souls in the rooms, on rubble in the streets, corpses near the buildings, all is light and heat. Time to take a stand, boys, time to make a choice, time to find our courage, time to be deployed. Make our own stand here, make our own complete. All we waited for now, past the future meet. Get your weapons ready, kiss the ones goodbye. Now our time is coming, and it is not the time to cry. Fight the war. Oh, fight the war. Fight the war.
Yeah, 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 yeah. That's what I'm talking about. I'm still fighting the war because why not have even more streaming? Yeah. Oh, yeah, even more streaming. What's up, Arvanauts? Welcome back to the channel. It is Tuesday night. It is 9:25 p.m. about on February 20th, 2018. I hope everyone is doing well and is looking forward to the awesomeness known as Masters of the Dungeon Episode 5, our Dungeon Master Roundtable. And I'm looking forward to this as always. And I want to thank everyone for stopping on and being there. If those of you who have been here the whole time, who were here for Lone Wolf this morning or this afternoon, I guess, and then watched the GOG Deadly Dungeon thing that I ran and then are back over here. You guys are troopers and you're awesome and I love you all. Before we get to that, to introducing the guys though, quick reminder about ways to support the stream. If you haven't already done so, please follow the channel. Please make sure to sub to the channel. Please make sure to check out the YouTube with exclamation point ArvTube, the Discord with exclamation point ArvCord, the Twitter with exclamation point ArvTweets. Definitely check out the shop, exclamation point ArvShop, because that would be awesome. And don't forget about the other ways to support. Number one, the Patreon, exclamation point ArvTreon. Again, at $4.50, we will have Arvanaut Idol 3, so our third Arvanaut Idol contest. We've got another Talisman tournament at $600. We've got another Arvocalis stream at $5.25, a radio play. So a lot of cool stuff for the channel and a lot of cool stuff for you if you can support that. And of course, the sub button, which is right above the window, that purple sub button. Again, subs have been increasing over here as well, which has been super cool. So I'm really excited about that. Last thing, quick reminder, we are up to 103 people out of 100 with our Thunderclap Thunderclap for Esper Genesis, which is awesome. Thank you guys so much. Now we're just building on it. We're just sort of increasing it and building on it and getting the most people that we possibly can for the greatest possible reach. Very excited that it's already set to go, but the more we can do and the more attention we can build, the better. So please support the Thunderclap if you haven't done so already. And thank you to all those of you who have done so already, because you are awesome people. And Esper Genesis itself is happening this Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern with Kat Rambo, with Johnny Pittman, with Zach Clay, and with Louise Moore, and of course with the lead developer from Alligator Alley Entertainment of this game, Rich Lescouflair. So he will be with us, and we'll be hanging out and playing this awesome 5th edition science fiction game that I'm super pumped to play. So hopefully you guys are looking forward to that as much as I am. That is happening Friday at 8 p.m. And then Saturday, we've got, of course, the Infinity and Beyond crew continuing with the Rise of Tiamat. So that's what we've got going on. Now with that, I'm going to get rid of this. I'm going to get rid of, where are we, this? And I'm going to turn on this. There we go. Hi, everyone. Good to see you all. Hope everyone is doing well. I am back. I'm still here, actually. And I am now going to unmute myself because two of our people are living in the across the pond in a place where it's far, far too early and getting earlier, so to speak. And then I'm going to unmute them, and then I'm going to slide over like dun 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 dun, just like that. And yes, they are here for your edification. It is my pleasure to welcome you all back to episode 5 of Masters of the Dungeon. We have got 3 of the 4 regulars, but we have a guest with us as well, and I will get to that person in just a minute. But I will begin by introducing, as always, the folks starting over to my right. That is the person who is sitting in front of not only the Darkest Dungeon, but the Darkest Timeline. And that, of course, is Will. How are you, Will, from Encounter Roleplay? What's up, man? How's life in the universe?
You know, good. Just actually finished a game with Josh earlier this evening. Which there were intellect devourers, and my kid was like strung up on this massive giant pole of doom. And so pretty good. There was
just a Tuesday.
I'm a
basically.
vampire. It's just the average Tuesday here. Yeah, I'm doing all right. It's a little tired actually. I'm drinking coffee to wake up, but nothing better to wake you up. I'm chatting about D&D, so I'm good. Thank you for asking. How are you, Up?
I'm doing fine. Yeah, this is my 3rd stream of the day, and I don't understand how you do this on a regular basis. Like, I assume it's just the power of youth that's compelling you, because otherwise I just don't get it. Like, how you do this on a regular basis is beyond me. But yeah, Will, of course, one of the hardest working men in show business, and does a really great job with his streams, legitimately. Like, all joking aside, Will does a really great job.
It's actually all illegitimate.
Totally illegitimately. I was paid for. Yeah, I was, and I was paid for all of that to say all of those things. No,
I launder a lot of money.
Yeah, yes, a whole from the extensive money that we all get from our D&D streaming careers. But thank you, Will. Always a pleasure to have you there, my friend. Right below Will, of course, we have got the other hardest working man in Twitch business, and that, of course, is Askren, who is sitting in front of his awesomely laid out green and black foam like audio blockers. It's pretty awesome, man.
It's literally like I bought this off of Amazon thinking like, oh my god, I'm gonna be a professional streamer when I finally put foam up on the wall.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize that this stuff is literally just like packing foam.
Yeah.
Like,
yep.
It looks cool, but it's actually just the foam that you get.
Yes.
In any kind of box.
Do you see the black on my door? That's exactly the same thing. Ordered from Amazon. I'm like, now my daughter can't hear anything. No, she can hear me putting packing foam up on the goddamn door.
2 square feet, and now my whole house is soundproof. I can't hear shit. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, clearly. Oh god.
My equilibrium is off. I don't even.
It's pretty crazy. But how are you, man? How's life?
I'm doing all right. I was playing some. Today is normally, or not normally, my day off, but I took a day off from writing because I'm actually ahead of writing on one of my campaigns to just play some video games and hang out with my community. And now I'm chilling here with you. Got some drinks. Got some Thin Mints.
Got some packing foam.
Girl Scout cookies just came in, so we got all the Thin Mints.
Nice.
So life is good.
Nice. Thin Mints, got some packing foam. That's cool. I've got a super delicious brownie, by the way, which I'll be consuming at various points whenever you guys make a good point in the show. I'll just be taking a bite.
That's your reward for.
That's my reward. That's my reward for what you do. I want to be clear. So that's the key. Every time it sounds good, take a brownie bite. That's how it goes. But cool, man. Thank you for being with us as always. And last but certainly not least, our guest, and that is Josh, otherwise known as Encounter Josh, who is over at Encounter Roleplay and just literally DM'd the thing with the Intellect Flayer and Will stuff and everything else. So welcome, Josh. Thank you for jumping on with us. And so do you understand how to do like are you part of this? I do 5 streams a day, like nobody's business, and it's fine. Like, how does...
No, I don't do 5 streams, but I did recently have several people who like I run a lot of games for people in real life, like friends. I'm really lucky to have a great group of friends who are all... I got quite a few of them into D&D when Will got me into it way back, and I regret it sometimes because I'm just like... I said to a friend the other day, he was like, I've got this new server that I'm starting up, and it's like a 24-hour roleplay server. And I'm like, he's like, yeah, maybe you've heard of it. I was like, I run one. I'm taking on a second one. You want me to join? I run free in real life games. I have Long March, and I have a full-time job. I have other stuff. So I'm just like, sometimes, yeah.
You mean you have another full-time job in addition to what you just described? Because that's what it really means. Like, you know. Oh my God. Still, nonetheless, I am, and in fact, actually, what we normally do at this point, this is a good way to do it. We actually talk about how our campaigns are going. So I'm going to start with you because that makes the most sense. So give me some highlight about something awesome that has been happening in a campaign of late. And it can be something good, bad, indifferent, like something that you're just like, this was badass when this happened, if you have such a thing.
I'm really blessed to be able to say that something actually happened today, which was super cool. We had a viewer decision come through on the show, and they went on a journey through part of the Underdark, which is pretty nasty. It's a homebrew world, and they're in the Eastern Underdark, which was cut off from the Western Underdark and was lost essentially. So they're going around and exploring some stuff, and they found a whole host of bad stuff. But they got some cool lizard mounts that were sort of chauffeuring them around. Everything was good, and then they lost them to a purple worm, and there was a big attack, and they were like, "Well, we need to get back." And I said, "Well, chat, tell me how they get back." And chat went for, they get nightmare steeds, and I was like, that is so bad. And then I looked, and I'm like, well, I gotta give there's one party member who's not with them at the moment. I'm re-getting the band back together. Wait a minute, there's 4 of them, 4 steeds, nightmarish steeds, and I was counting them all up, and I'm like, what do they all have personality? And I have managed to make them the new 4 horsemen of the Underdark. Will's character, Gregor, is a warrior who's he's all about sort of proving that he's stronger than everyone.
Mm-hmm.
He'll headbutt anyone. Like he's a real man's man.
So this is Will in real life, is what?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, all right, good.
Literally, it's just what he does on a day-to-day,
including the steed, by the way. Like he rides it around the UK, like I assume, all the time.
Oh yeah,
That's what we do in England. I mean, that's just in English.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
So he faced Conquest. We had Gavin's character. I actually think of him as Gavin sometimes. Tall School's character. In my mind, like I can't separate the two. But yeah, Tall School's character Gavin got the Flaming Steed of War. The other member of the party was a wizard, and she got Famine, which wasn't the best of fits. But then they come back to get their fourth and final party member, who is a vampire, recently turned, still adjusting, and Famine and Hunger kind of works together. So she got it back, and finally this leaves the necromantic wizard without a steed. But way back in season 1, she raised a horse. She was given a horse by a donation, and it was an undead horse. So she got the Horse of Death. So we have Death, Famine, Conquest, and War as the 4 horsemen. And it was just so awesome, just sitting there and just thinking like, hold on, I can match you guys all up to a horse and make you fight horsemen, and then claim their steeds and have them as new sick-ass rides that are all going to have cool little perks, which is going to be super fun.
Wow, that is crazy. I was thinking about the nature of how we like routinely are just like, so then, Thor shows up. And we're like, whatever, Thor, why don't you, become our best friend? Sure, Thor's my best friend. Like we just, it's like the whole thing is a deities and demigods book. We just do whatever. We like run roughshod over all gods, culture, structures. We're just like, here, take this, become the four horsemen, whatever. You do this, you become that person. So
yeah, it's super chill, and that's what I mean. I like when chat works. Like when chat, you throw something to chat gives it back to you, and then you're just like, guys, I came up with, like, bear with me, like this will take me like 20 minutes to bring in, but I got a plan here.
I've got a plan.
I got to cavalry charge the party with 3 horsemen of the apocalypse, which was super fun.
Dig it. Wow.
Yeah, that was a pretty dope moment of today. Yeah.
Dig it. That's good stuff. Ashgren, you got something that can top that? You have I had the 5 horsemen of the apocalypse, so
5.5. Actually.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know if you've read that book of Revelations. I've actually, it's been really interesting in a couple of my campaigns. Actually, all of them have had things that have been really, really interesting. Some of them are things that I've been building up to in Writhing Moon. I got to drop some really interesting twists and turns on the party and see them kind of react to it. But I think my favorite moment of late happened in Razor Coast, which is the pirate campaign that we do. Yeah. And so the party they're like freebooters in this pirate town of Port Shaw, which is Tortuga, basically. And they're kind of rolling around the town. They took a little bit of a commission with the probably evil or corrupt leader of the military in town, and then they took some other jobs. They're just trying to find money, and they're trying to find their feet in the world. But they were eventually given this job given this kind of lead on someone that was bringing drugs into the city. And basically that put them at a crossroads where they could do a few different things. They could either attempt to work with the person doing the drug trade. They could attempt to bring them down to curry favor with like the powers that be, or they could attempt to take them down, like take the drugs to themselves, or take them out and take the money and become like proper pirates.
Okay.
And so they basically what's the word? Schmoozed their way into having like this notorious pirate captain take them out on the sea to find this cove where the drugs were, and they had to storm the cove, and it was just them. And I had this whole cove set up with like smugglers, and there was a pirate ship fight, and it was all this shit. And they were gonna fight the Gnoll, who was the smuggler, and his Goralion, which is a 4-armed gorilla pet that he has. Big event, whatever. They stormed the cave in such a way I didn't expect, that they ended up basically killing his pet and surrounding this Gnoll. And they were like, instead of just killing him and taking his stuff, they did something that I didn't really expect. Where they said, "Oh, by the way, this whole operation is ours now." And you work for us. And I'm like, it wasn't what I prepped, and it wasn't what I had planned for. But not only that, the reason that it was so awesome for me was because it felt in the moment, it really felt like they are asserting themselves on the world, right?
Sure.
Like, there's a lot of games I write where the world kind of opens up for the players, and it kind of gives them opportunities to do cool things. But this game, I really wanted it to feel like the world just didn't care about them, right? The world was going to do its thing, and it was going to be as ruthless as it was going to be, and they had to be just as cutthroat or dubious or pernicious to survive. And so I really like the feel that they are deciding who they are. They're deciding where their morality lies, and they're making it clear to me that no matter what the obstacle, they are going to assert themselves on this world, and they're going to make their own mark and their own legend and their own path in it. And I love that, because it means like, what the fuck am I going to prep next for these guys?
Yeah, that's pretty cool. You're right. When players are working outside of what you expect, but they're not doing it. There's a difference, I think, between players who are doing that, literally just trying to throw grenades into the adventure, and those who are doing it because they really want to. They're like, no, we're pirates, and we want to do like cool piratey thing. Like, I love people who embrace their character. So I think that's cool that they embraced an identity. That's neat. That's cool, man. Yeah, I've actually had a chance to lurk a couple times watching some of that, and it's fun to see that whole thing operate. I have a soft spot in my heart for Wild West stuff and pirate stuff. When it comes to role playing, I have a little bit of a soft spot in my heart for that stuff. So yeah, that's cool, man. I like it. Will, which of these 7 million hours of programming do you want to highlight? No, it doesn't have to be that. Either podcast or stuff that you've had recently that kind of stood out for you. If you can think of one example, I guess, of stuff going on the good campaign or bad campaign front.
Something that came to mind when I was thinking about exactly what I was going to say at this point was the show we do on the D&D channel about the Learn by Play one, which we've just started.
Right.
Had it two weeks in at the moment. And we just had that. The first week, in fact, was when we have that kind of awkward, like party meet moments. Are they going to get along? Is anything going to work? Is this going to be, kind of painful or not? But it was like really awesome. These two characters, Sydney's character and Chelsea's character, had this really awesome scene, which was they're like jugglers at a circus, right? And they're like performers at a circus. And the circus master in the part of their backstory is that, they get beaten by this guy. Basically, he comes along and whips them because, he's a piece of work. Right old villain, And so that happens. And then there's a guy that comes along, and I'm setting up a bunch of conflicts in the story where I'm like, okay, we're setting up some villains, and one of the main villain comes along, and he's like, yo, kill this guy. He's like, I've got a contract, like straight up murder this man for us. And they're like, not adventurers at this point. They're just like, there's a strong man and she's an archer. And the guy's like, here's a contract of employment. You will have more money you can possibly have ever wanted to go off an adventure. Like, kill them. And I'm like, ha ha ha, silly moral decision that they're never going to take. And they're like, all right, like, we signed this contract. And then they perform this hilarious scene in which they, they're performing on stage, but they're also murdering the guy while they're doing their performance. It's like, nice. Oh no, we shot him and he's fallen over. And this hilarious improv moment happened where, they play out this really funny scene. So that was definitely a highlight for me. Just, just the wacky moments of improv that come from, like Ashton was saying, a moment which you're not expecting a player to go and be like, oh, okay, like, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And,
no plan survives contact with your players, I think is fair to say. Like, this stuff happens all the time. I think I caught part of that. Will has definitely been killing it over at the D&D channel doing the Let's Play. That's cool. Yeah, I had this experience earlier today, which is on my mind because I just did it. So we had this thing called the GOG Games that GOG has been doing to sort of a tribute to the Olympics, where people are going for different teams: Team Nilfgaard, Team Morrowind, Team Arstatska, and I forget what the last one is.
All about the Morrowind.
I
don't know what it is, but
it's all about Morrowind. Yeah, well, there's a lot of Arstatska advocates as well. But yeah, so and there's been different games where like people are doing like Cuphead and pinball or whatever. But so my contribution was that I decided I would run something which I never do. I would run a super, super deadly dungeon. And so I pulled out Tomb of Horrors because I'm like, you know what? At this point, I've been DMing for almost 30 years. It's time I actually DM this thing. And let's see how many people can get killed off. And the idea was that the longest surviving person would get the gold. So, first person out gets nothing, second person out gets bronze, third gets silver, fourth gets gold. So, but the people who were playing, there were a couple of people. One person had a good deal of D&D experience. And then one person had a little and the others really didn't much except like through video games or whatever. So they're going into the tomb and it really... I give them level 10 characters. They just sort of like, it's kind of like lambs to the slaughter. What surprised me though, is that they just kind of went with it because like, as anyone who's played in a game with me, Will knows this. I like to call balls and strikes the way I see them. I like to be fair. I have had players die in my games, but my method of DMing is not the adversarial, every step you take, I'm attempting to kill you, because I think of D&D as collaborative storytelling. And if people die, it's part of the narrative and it's part of what happens, and you go with it, but you don't go out of your way
Except for that goddamn river.
That, yes. Well, listen, I mean, that's true. I definitely put that river in the way so that a Dunedain would not have any knowledge of how to cross it properly. Oh, God, I forgot about that. Yeah, that was a good moment, too. Will with his Dunedain character in my Adventures of Middle-earth campaign, having to be saved by his best friend in the party, Inga, the dwarf, who, like, leaps in to save him because the Dunedain can't actually cross the river. It was pretty funny. But the thing about it is, like, I don't, death trap dungeon type things, like, I don't know. But man, Tomb of Horrors is brutal, and I was a little concerned, but they had an absolute blast. And like, one guy ended up dying because he fell into a 100-foot pit, and just like, he just falls and that's the end of it. Another guy dies because this statue turns on him and like fires this like laser beam that he completely fails his dexterity roll. And another one had, to save her from poison that was killing her, polymorphed into a snake. She slithered into the cleric's armor to avoid being picked up by the wizard who was trying to get back his magical hat that she had stolen. It's a long story, it doesn't matter. She goes into the armor, and then when the wizard dies, the polymorph is up. She's inside the guy's armor. So she was killed terribly, and so she ended up dying, and he just survived. But what made it epic is the fact that she had been hit spikes, been poisoned. The betting money was that this happened to her in the first 15 minutes. Like, the betting money was she was obviously going to be out first. She somehow survived to the end of the game, even as a snake. As a snake, she always somehow escapes death until the end and gets a silver medal. So, and at the end, she was like, "That is the greatest fun I've ever had. This is the best game." I'm like, well, I'm glad you like a game which was literally built to kill the diviner of the game's son character, which is exactly why he did it. It was...
Exactly. I couldn't believe like the first time I'd never, because I was the same as you. I was like, I've got to play it at some point. My mate said I'll run it, and the only reason we made any progress is because I've played so many games on Encounter. I was just like, we started off, I took a level 20 character in there, died first trap somehow.
Yep.
Like I genuinely, and I sat down with my friend who I was playing with, and we Googled to see how many traps there were, and figured out I have enough characters just from playing on Encounter for years and years and years in different campaigns to just make it through by triggering every trap with my face. So literally, I'd like go in, make it one trap further, die, load a different roll 20, and I'm like, right, I'm now playing this guy, and by the end of it, I'm like, final fucking stages of the dungeon, and I was playing like a level 3 character from like some really obscure like one shot we did a long time ago, and I'm like, this guy has nothing, but he's made it so far by learning
over the bodies of his dead companions, right? Like,
exactly.
Yeah.
I've run Tomb of Horrors 5 times, and I've seen so many different ways that people have decided to attempt to overcome the traps, to the point where it's almost a game to see how ridiculous. Like, someone tried to use their the money they get, standard wealth for their level. I think it was 9. It was a suggested level in 4th edition.
Okay.
They wanted to buy chickens and cart in just enough chickens that they could just throw them down the hallway and trigger everything. But ironically, the Tomb wanting to run those kind of things where like you actually put players against tests that, trials that really test their ability to think and reason and just interact with the game in fun and interesting ways, was literally what Grant and I just did when we were on the talk show not too long ago. And I forget what he was talking about tournament modules, the old tournament modules, and wanting to run a lot of classic adventures. And I was like, it was an awesome show, Legends of the Hidden Temple.
Yep.
And so like that's we both realized that there is not I don't think there's enough of that in the stream space of people just seeing those old really cool modules and just kind of throwing themselves against those meat grinders sometimes.
It's very true, especially when I was playing the 5e version, which is a lot, which even I shouldn't say a lot, it is a little less deadly than the original 1st edition, but You know, the thing is that I think people enjoy those when they go in recognizing that it's going to be unfair.
Right.
You know, they give you a lot less grief then if they assume you're going in and it's going to be fair, and then you do this stuff they would not. I'm sure they wouldn't like the stuff that was being done. As it was, they were having a grand old time. They're like, "Oh, I was supposed to push the levers up and I pushed them down and I fell to my death." Well, you know, like it was those are, you know, those are cool because they knew that the whole thing was just designed to be kind of a lark. And for that, it's really great. I don't know about incorporating it into a bigger campaign.
Right. That's what I was going to say.
I don't know.
Is there was actually a lot of advice. This didn't go much in the 4th edition and on era, but I know this came up a lot in 2nd and 3rd. People like, here's the Tomb of Horrors module, incorporate this into your campaign, and people were like, no,
Yeah, no.
don't do that.
No chance. No, I'm with you. I'd like to see some of those old ones. One of my favorite, I would love to see some of the old ones. Like everyone talks about keeping the Borderlands, but man, Palace of the Silver Princess was dope. The freaking Ghost Tower of Inverness was so cool. There were some really, really cool things in Ghost Tower of Inverness, and I'd love to see those moved up into 5e. I mean, yes, could I convert it? Yes, with my copious free time, but I would love to see it, you know, being converted.
What was it? Keep on the Borderlands is the one that's getting a 5th edition.
Yes,
right?
yes. We were talking about that actually. I think last week it was the Keep on the Borderlands. Yes, and I'm all over it, and I don't care if it's a money grab. I don't care what anybody says.
Oh, yeah, no,
I'm buying it like immediately. It's a media buy. Keeping the Borderlands is my first module I ever played in 6th grade. I'm absolutely playing it, like without question.
The only thing I guess the last thing I'll say on this is my favorite thing about Tomb of Horrors was obviously getting a group of people and being like, hey, we're gonna play Tomb of Horrors. It's gonna be fucking challenging. You got to know that going in. As long as you're willing to have fun with it, it's gonna be fun. And then when people were asking about playing it, I said, so every legend, every story about how tough or unfair or deadly, every rumor about every trap that's in there, just assume they're all true going in, and that makes it so much more fun.
Oh yeah, absolutely, they're all true. Like it's completely ridiculous. Yeah, like same as you. That's cool, Wiley. Yeah. I mean, like, oh man, so many good older kind of modules. But yeah, it's cool to have those meat grinder things as long as you're aware, you know, what it is that you're getting into, and as long as they know up front. I mean, then it becomes like a badge of honor, right? Like I survived Tomb of Horrors, or I didn't survive it, or whatever, you know.
I've never done Badge of Honor, but I did. I played it in my local pub once. In the back room, we used to rent out sort of the back room from a friend, and I sat down one night with a bunch of people that I'd introduced, and I literally went, "Let's do it one night." Like half the people from the usual campaign didn't show up, so there's a load of people here. You guys will want to try something crazy. I literally had them roll out of Tales of the Yawning Portal. They rolled to see which one they were doing, and they rolled it, and I can't remember what it was, and I was like, oh, we could do Tomb of Horrors. And like even the players who didn't know D&D particularly well were like, I've heard of that. And I'm like, oh, yeah. And the one guy who won, he won because he was the only guy who didn't step into a place. And I literally said, like, you step into this bit, cool, so you vanish, and we'll get to you guys in a bit.
Do people actually step into the mouth? Is that a thing?
Yeah. No, it's a thing. And they're stepping in like, okay, so we'll get to you guys in a minute. And literally, he was the only guy he'd never played before, and he was just like, I don't do it. I wait. And I'm like, how long do you wait for? And the whole party's gone in, and I'm like, how long do you wait for? And he was like, an hour. And I'm like, an hour passes, and he's like, 2 hours. I'm like, 2 hours passes. You starting to get hungry, and he's like, I'm gonna go back to the tavern and get something to eat. And I literally was like, you were the only survivor. And I bought drinks for the rest of the night because I was like, you legend, you survived the Tomb of Horrors by going, this is not for me.
By noping on out of there. Like
that happened with one that happened with one character. I remember one character made it out unscathed, and that was because I forget exactly which one, but there's a portal somewhere in it that I forget which situation it is, so no spoilers there. But it pops you out at the front of the dungeon, but with no gear.
Yep.
And so he was like, "Is the cart that we left still there?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "All right, I guess I'm going home."
Right. There's some of that just like, yeah, like one of the characters actually tried to grab the person who'd been polymorphed into a snake and then just shove her into the mouth, shove the character into the mouth of the hole. But she had an epic dodge roll of like 19 or 20, and he missed. So, you know, and I was like, well, so we never got to see what happened if you jumped in the mouth. But anyway, yeah, it was a lot of fun. I was concerned. I wasn't sure how it was going to work because I'm just not that's not normally how I would play, but it was, as this was, it was a blast, and the cleric ended up being the last survivor, albeit, his body in terrible shape and crushed by the person who polymorphed into a human within his armor. So it was good times. But yeah, so it was fun. So, all right. Well, I guess we should bring up a little bit about the subject of the day. And we had two things that chat through my way that I thought I would bring up for you gentlemen and see what the esteemed panel thinks about it. And the first one has to do with addressing the problem player. So we've been talking about players that embrace things properly and get into the campaign and get into their character and they just have fun with it. But I'm sure that we have had players that didn't do that. And that kind of didn't get why, we were they just were not in sync, let's say. And so I guess I'll leave it up to you, gentlemen. First of all, how would you define, what is the player that you don't particularly care for, the type of player that you don't particularly care for? How have you dealt with them in the past?
Shotgun.
Okay. I don't deal with too many problem players anymore.
But I'm talking about in the past, because I don't either.
No,
but
I've definitely dealt with them in the past, and I don't know if it's a question of widening the community or just being more selective with who actually who I personally sit down to play with, and these days I have no idea. But I certainly don't experience it in the way that I sometimes used to. But I think the only thing I've ever really regularly experienced that I could say was a problem player kind of thing were it's a thing that I haven't seen in forever, but there was this old trope that I'm sure we all experienced back in the dark ages of D&D, where you had a player who just refused to engage with the story or the party or something for some reason or another.
Mm-hmm.
When I was young, when I started playing D&D, for some reason, everyone in 3rd edition loved the idea of playing this loner character that wasn't part of the party but was still kind of there.
Everyone's Mad Max. Yeah,
right. And it's and we got to a point where why though, why are you here? Go roll dice by yourself. But those I haven't experienced those. So though, that's what I was, if you are in that situation, do what I just did, which is ask why. That's what I would suggest.
And wait for the answer. I have a theory about that, but I'll come back to it in a minute. Will, what about you? Do you, I'm sure we may not deal with this now, but in the past, problem players.
Yeah. I have what I would call, I'm not meant to swear too much, am I? A genitalia dar. A male genitalia dart, where I'm like a radar, but for cockerels. Yes, I can say that on the channel. Yes.
Everyone now is frantically Googling what you just said. Just think it through. You'll get it. It's clear.
You'll get there. I had an uncle named Dick, actually. So, yes, right. So, it's mostly where less so I have less problems with people in character, or I've run into that in the past. More so personality conflicts will arise when there's you get D&D, right? And people that play D&D, generally people like myself are maybe not incredibly socially there 100%, right?
I have no idea what you
mean. So you get five slightly socially awkward people and you put them together and you force them to be social. It's a recipe for disaster one way or another. Something's going to go wrong somewhere when you got all those people. That's how I kind of look at it. So yeah, also run into some personality conflicts with people like that, or other players at the table feeling uncomfortable, mostly around men, and being uncomfortable towards women.
Yep.
And in that case, it's sort of just get rid of this guy who's on my genitalia dar. Whew, that's close.
You can use the term dick. It's okay. It's fine.
Thank God. I probably said worse here. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, yep. Says all the time. Yeah, I haven't really had that sort of and I hear it a lot, you know, like kind of awkward player who's been there for a long time and you feel like you can't get rid of that person because they're part of the group and it's, you know, you're all friends
Right.
and there's, you know, inherent awkwardness because often these things are around the table. The nature of streaming, if you don't want to talk to someone, and basically being online, if you don't want to talk to someone, you really don't have to talk to them anymore. You know, it's literally, you're a button click away from never speaking to a person again. You know, it's brilliant, it's beautiful like that. But then you're also like exposed to a huge amount of dicks as well. So I know I am personally on Live Jasmine.
Well,
Exposed to a great amount of them, and that pleases me. But you know what I mean? Like, I feel like if you really have a problem with someone, you can just talk to them about it. And if you talk to them about it and they're not going to do anything about it, you just move on. You know, just kill people.
just eliminate them.
In game.
Yeah, in game. Yeah, in and out.
In game.
Highly
Very, very important clarification.
I mean, I've talked about this in the past, and it was like I remember watching a video of myself talking about it from like 2 years ago when I started streaming, and I was like, you should just like talk about your feelings all the time and give everyone like 10 chances. But nowadays, I'm like, I'm a savage, Oven. You know?
No, I mean that's clear.
Do you know what I mean? I feel like I've been like I used to have much more of a tolerance for like people that I shouldn't tolerate and behavior that I shouldn't tolerate, and made excuses for people, rather than I think dealing, you know, with those issues head on. I think more and more so doing streaming, having just met more people and having just done it a lot more and been through that, it's more so the case where I'm like, I don't want to give someone a chance to excuse their, you know, inexcusable behavior. So if someone, you know, is just like a massive dick, then I don't really have much time for that anymore. And I think maybe that's just the nature of being jaded and, you know, just being on the internet for so long. But like, especially when my life is being on the internet, if something is toxic in that, I just want to get rid of it. You know,
you've also got more choices too. I mean, you have more selection, you know, in a way, like where you have more opportunities and more people you network with. So you don't have to waste your time with, you know, your 5 friends that live in the 2-block radius or whatever like that, you know, so that's got to be part of it also. Yeah, but I'll buy that. Josh, have you had that experience of like people that in the past, let's say the distant, terrible past?
Yeah, I try not to, you know, think back ever about anything.
no, black it all out.
The dark place just yeah, exactly. No, I've had plenty of experiences in the past, even relatively recent past. Luckily, nothing through a sort of encounter or online, just through personal games that I've just been like, I'm done. Like and I have had situations where I've had to sit down with like a moderator team or like a DMing team or, you know, just a group of mates and just go like, I can't deal with this anymore. And a lot of it comes down to genuinely, I'd say this is like a player and as a DM, like there's always going to be like, always try and if it's workable, if you feel like there's a way you can make progress forward, then great. And certainly try, but don't try to the extent where it's like a job for you or like don't take on it should be your sort of your pleasure to, you know, teach people, not your responsibility. You shouldn't feel like, and I mean, like no one's ever going to be the same kind of role player that I'm going to be in every way, in every aspect, which is why you role play, is to talk to other people and have interesting conversations through different people and, you know, find out stuff. Like there's nothing cooler, and I get really frustrated with other people who have very different sort of ways of doing it, and I don't agree with it, but I get along with it because it's fine. But if there is something that is just too toxic, just there's another game out there for you, mate. You can go out there, you can find, especially with online, there's so many communities and stuff. The one that I don't want to be all negative though, so I will give you a positive, which was I have a legendary Curse of Strahd game, which unfortunately, since I moved I relocated, I don't get to DM anymore, but I brought a load of people who'd never played D&D 5e before. Some of them have played like 3.5, some of them have played like Pathfinder, but mostly we all knew each other because we all played Warhammer, so everything was like dice rolling by the book, rules lawyering so hard at each other.
Yep.
They had never, like, you don't give like, I know some of them do their beloved models that they spend a lot of time painting, but they don't really give like personality or character. And everything's like the law has to be the law. They'll like give themselves detriment because the law says this, and I'm like, all right, guys, like let's have a little fun. So I brought him on board, and I knew what I was getting myself into. And we had a guy who in episode 1 met Strahd, and I did a big unveiling, and I'd never run the module before, so I'm like, I have to meet Strahd, to wash up on a beach. I don't really know how they got there. They don't recognize anyone they're with. They wash up on a beach and laid out on this huge sandy beach with a turbulent sea behind them, the roiling dark clouds above them, is a buffet, like a huge dining table that's completely out of place. And it is just festooned with food and lavish luxury in every direction. And Strahd is standing right there. And they're just like all of the characters, like we know, like I don't know D&D, I don't know the rules, I don't know my character, but I know who Strahd is. Like I know what, I get that. And he's just on the beach with us. Like, do we what do we do? And I'm like, well, realistically, can you kill him? And no, like we're level 1 characters. I'm like, right, well, maybe strike up a conversation, put him in a situation like that. And this guy, he's 100% will not budge from the rules at all. He rolled 3 insight checks against Strahd, and he nat 1'd 3 times in a row. And to the point that they're such number crunchers that he gave me the astronomical odds. It was like something like, it was like 85,726 to 1 that would happen. I'm like, whatever you say, mate. Like, buddy, I love the fact that you get a kick out of that, but like, whew, it's just
get a life. Yeah,
I'm just gonna laugh at you. I'm just gonna laugh at you.
Like Strahd, I laugh at you.
Exactly, because we want to be there laughing when you do. But I'm standing there, and I'm like, and he wrote in his character like that's it now. My character believes anything that anyone tells him until it's disproved. And it was a massive hindrance for the first 5 sessions. He got everyone in trouble, and I got like people coming to me, and I'm like trying to run the module, and he's just like making it really difficult. And because people have put ideas in his head, like, you've got to be a courageous hero. And he's like, well, we'll just go fight Strahd now. And like people are having to drag him back as the only decent fighter in the party.
Mm-hmm.
And I had the book in front of me, and I was like, these guys are just here to have fun. It's not, we're not streaming. This isn't doesn't have to be by the book. And I pretty much just closed the book, put it to one side, and our Curse of Strahd campaign went so off the rails that they now... my threat to them for the past sort of 4 months has been, I'm going to kill them with the day-to-day mundanity of obligation and 9-to-5 jobs, because they have all found employment working for Strahd to better his empire and build his empire, because they have all been convinced that Strahd is the good guy of this story. And I threw everything out the window and rewrote Strahd as this really amazingly beautiful, manipulative character. And he hasn't had to fight once, other than killing one of his own servants for speaking out of term.
So it's the curse of bureaucracy.
It's
that you basically put them
so
under.
good. Nigel the Destroyer, who's the really naive one, is in charge of the guards, who are oppressing the good people, and he's thinks he's a hero of the people. The whole guard force got wiped out by the party just through, and it was a series of complete catastrophe accidents of them biting off way more than they could chew, and people paying the price. So now the entire guard force are vampire spawn. The paladin was double-crossed by Strahd, but he doesn't know it in character, and basically thinks Strahd saved him from Oath Keepers. Loads of stuff happened, and now I sit there and I just think I remember when it was such a problem, and now everyone comes in and sits down and they all dread him. But I just love the fact he's now one of my favorite players because he made that, and I just had to adapt. It's just about sometimes you sort of look at it and you're like, but I have this idea that I'm clinging to, and I need it to be, this is my story right here, and it has to be this, but someone's over here, and I'm like, I'm here to have fun. Let's go over there. Let's see what it is. And it became one of the most hilarious campaigns of my life.
So
pleasure.
That I think is the point there. What's up, EMC? I think the point there is that you make that's really important that we've made a bunch of times on this show is the importance of thinking of Dungeons and Dragons as a collaborative group story,
Absolutely.
as opposed to one person presenting something which a bunch of pawns on a chessboard move through, right? That they have their independent agency. And earlier on today, Askren was talking about the people in Razor Coast going in a direction he hadn't expected. And, Will has talked here multiple times about people that, like didn't the people who picked up the contract that he talked about earlier on. They're like, sure, I'll go and kill that guy. That is sort of the lifeblood, I think, of what makes D&D vital as a game, is the fact that it's based upon this sort of collaborative storytelling thing. And I think, to go back to what you said for a second, Askren, I think my guess as to why we don't have players like that as much, I think has to do with the influence of things that they may have been exposed to. And I'll give two examples of this. The first is, and you guys are going to know both of these. The first are the Acquisitions Incorporated ones, and the second one is Critical Role. The Acquisitions Incorporated ones, which as much as Critical Role gets all the attention, Acquisitions Incorporated started this. Before Critical Role was a thing that anybody knew about, Acquisitions Incorporated had this idea of these guys who were not really D&D players, who had some basic knowledge. Jerry Holkins knew about it, but Mike Krahulik certainly didn't. Scott Kurtz didn't really know that much, maybe like an earlier edition or something like that. And they all kind of got together and played this game with them just hanging out and bantering. And then Will Wheaton joins and does the same thing. And it was hilarious and funny and was manifestly not based upon, let me just screw over everybody all the time, or let me be an independent free agent, or let me make myself the hero of my own story at all the time. It was everybody kind of working together. And even when they were working against each other, they were still doing so within the parameters of, we're a group. So I may want this and you want this, but I'm not going to literally torpedo the entire chance of anyone doing anything just so I can get this. And that to me is an example of that and Critical Role, which is obviously party oriented. You can have lots and lots of, without putting too fine a point on it, there was a guy who ended up leaving Critical Role fairly early in the overall run when it became a public thing, because I don't think he could do that. Because he really was not a person who could kind of get into the group experience. He wanted to make it about him, and so he left, because that was not obviously something which was going to be absorbed by any of them, or absorbed by someone that, of course, Askren has talked to directly, and I guess Will has also, Matt Mercer, that being able to actually have these people work together as a common element. So I hope that is what is inspiring players to be able to understand that this is a lot more fun when everyone is having fun in the story together. But it's true that back in the day, before that happened, there were a lot more worse examples to me of the person going it alone, being, everyone's a lone wolf, everyone's a Mad Max, everyone's a whatever, and therefore nobody really experiencing it as a collaborative thing, which is what it is at its best, I think.
There's another aspect, and I think this is one that we probably aren't super consciously aware of, because I think it sort of just happened over time, but it's even as a whole, like if you examine a lot of the ways that we as nerds and with our movies and with even take superhero movies right now, right? Name one superhero movie that's just about one superhero. All of them have multiple characters.
Black Panther, I don't know. Right.
They all have multiple characters that are intersecting. Like everything that we do in fantasy storytelling these days is a lot more geared towards a group dynamic rather than a single person being the center of the universe. Whereas if you look back, especially when the D&D thing was starting, getting from second and third edition, you had a lot of the fantasy novels, the Salvatore novels, the Dragonlance, the Drizzt, all this stuff. They tended to focus on very, very singular characters, and people wanted to mirror those characters in their own role play. Everyone wanted to have a great hero, and it kind of didn't matter to them whether or not the rest of the party was also great.
Yeah.
But we as a culture, I think, have sort of shifted our lexicon a little bit to where we don't so much care about those individual agents. Like no one goes into a D&D game thinking about how they're going to be the coolest person in the party, right? As
No.
some people do, but I think as a lot, like it's the thing.
Some people know we're the coolest people in the
Yeah,
world.
exactly.
Right. It
Oh,
doesn't
boy.
you don't have to speak it. It's just kind of assumed. But I think it's sort of an underlying shift in how we approach fiction and things like that, and sort of where we place values. And also, like Josh said, and this is a point that as long as I've been talking about dungeon mastering on the internet, people have always been asking, like, what do I do about problem players? What do I do about a group that's not doing this or that? And you guys both made this really interesting point. Like, we don't just have to play with like the 5 people we know from high school now, right? And you get who you get, and you don't get to change it. If you're willing to sort of step outside of that small comfort zone, that's what we only had the people that we had around us when we were playing in the older days. It's like, and if you got Jim, and Jim was a really crappy metagamer, and you had Tim, and Tim only wanted to play Drizzt and didn't want to be part of the party, like you didn't get to change your friends.
Yeah.
But nowadays you can play with whoever you want, and I think it's a lot more acceptable to sort of to realize that not every group is right for every player.
Yeah.
And that's not a bad thing.
No,
and I
absolutely.
tell people that all the time, is like, if you're not having fun, you don't need to stick it out and try and make it work for you over time. You can find a group that plays exactly the way you want to play and lets you be exactly the person you want to be. And that's one of the best things that happen to the hobby.
Yeah.
Yeah, I call
Like-
those abusive D&D relationships that people feel stuck in. Just get
Yeah,
out of them.
Yeah.
Move on.
One thing that just while we're on the sort of the topic, I wanted to just push back slightly, because I love
You guys
the
making some
idea-
good points with it. I'm going to have a couple brownie bites.
yeah,
you're at
Just,
some points.
just stuff them in.
That's cool.
We've earned those.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They're delicious. These are delicious points, every one of them.
Why is this working?
Can I implement this system on my
Sorry,
channel?
sorry, Josh. I apologize.
No, it's cool. It's cool. But what I found really interesting when I designed certain aspects of the Long March, because the Long March is currently, I run the Long March off stream. I've run it for intro sessions for a couple of friends. I do it sort of a lot of stuff, and like it's different completely. In every time I play it, it runs a completely different world. But I add bits from every world into they all intermesh, because I take something I love that. But one of the core things I originally started with was like, take like the traditional party, like of really stereotypical party members. So you've got like the dwarven fighter in the heaviest armor with the best weaponry and everything like that. The sun elf wizard who's incredibly powerful. If the orc barbarian, or like the orc paladin, or whatever you want to do, make it really stereotypical, and then just imagine what it would be like to be a common person or a grunt in the army, and when they turn up and murder hobo their way to XP as fast as they can and grind through. If you actually lived in a world where you had to deal with that, how much would you hate them? How much would you literally just be like, oh fuck?
Has anyone tapped that for a comic or movie? Because I really feel there's unchurned ground there.
Yeah.
Because I made the Pentaval 5 as these guys who were just like, they like hoard all the best loot, they like have all the money, and I didn't have to do pretty much anything in game to introduce them and people on stream, and literally people were just like, I hate those guys so much. Those guys.
Yep.
We
are
knew
just
them
the
so
worst.
much. Those guys are just douchebags.
Those guys are the worst.
But literally, all they are is literally just meta, and like they've certainly developed into something else. But I was just like if you were think about it, like in the games where a lot of modules and stuff like that have a great way of like, you got to do this sort of side mission to get their loyalty, and everything you do at the end brings together a force that backs you up, and they will like pull down different layers of the defense of the final boss battle. If you bring such and such, like from the Stormlands, they come, and they, because of that, the cavalry charge against you never happens because they hold them up and whatever. But can you imagine if you were called in to do that just because some guy turned up, in your town and did a favor for the noble lord, and you have to march like 400 miles to fight some battle you don't give a rat's ass about, you'd be really salty. So I loved, like, I
Poor bloody infantry.
yeah, exactly, the poor bloody infantry. And certainly you guys are, like, in the Long March are not the kind of people that because you're all terrible people, but I like the idea of turning that on its head and sort of looking back at like how like the traditional parties were formed, because nowadays so many people are really good. I've got loads of friends who are really good at role playing flaws in their character, and they stick
Right.
to them really well, and I love that about them. Like, people, like, I've got one of my characters is level 20 and he has an 8 in dexterity, and that's because I've had loads of chances to boost it up, but he's a 400-pound overweight lard-ass dwarf, and I will keep him that way forever. I'm not going to min-max him, and every encounter we come in, it's like, make a dex save, and I'm like, I'm dead.
Yeah.
I'm gonna die here. This is me.
Yeah, we in my Pathfinder game, we the same thing. Like, we're getting to that level where everything makes you make will saves, and the barbarian was just like, oh well.
Yep.
I'll tank it. Like,
I love the fact that in that game the dwarf has so much AC that he's like, stealth? No, we're never stealthy. He's like, oh, there's monsters. I'm just gonna walk towards them. They can't hit me anyway. Like, I'm literally made of metal.
But I think that's important too, because I think what it reflects is an example of the idea of embracing the flaw is to embrace the humanity, if you will, or, you know, I'm being humanist, creaturality, right? To embrace the sort of personality of the character that you've created. And this is why we don't like Mary Sue's. This is why we don't like characters that can do absolutely everything at any time, because these are characters that are not interesting. They have no real obstacles. Even if they did have an obstacle, you wouldn't care about them because you can overcome them so quickly. And that doesn't make for sort of interesting role playing. I think the only caveat that I would draw with everything all of you guys have said, one just quick thing I wanted to say, Asker, and I think you probably agree with me on this anyway, but just a quick point about that is that I agree that you don't need to stick with something, and we'll call it the D&D abusive relationship. I agree you don't have to stick with that, and I agree that not every group is for every player, 100%. I think that's very true. I would say, though, that if you find as a player that you're having difficulty finding a group because this sort of thing continues to happen, you know, because you're going into an environment and you're not getting that kind of experience that you want, you do at some point have to look yourself in the mirror a little bit and be well. And I'm not saying you're not saying this, but be willing to do a little bit of self-reflection, and frankly, to go outside your comfort zone a little bit. You know, one of the things that I try to make clear to my players is that everyone will get what they want in the aggregate, in the end. If you were a combat-oriented player over the course of a year-long campaign, you'll get your combat, but it's not going to happen every session. And if you are really into political intrigue, you're not going to get it every session. You've got to have faith in me that I know what I'm doing. You will get it over time. And they do. And that way, they can invest fully in the other characters they're working with and how much cool stuff they're going through. And there's a lot of interweaving stories, and one thing does affect the other, and da-da-da-da-da. And there's a rhythm to it as a dungeon master you get into where everybody gets their moment. And doing that along with the Avengers, like let's be real, the part of the Avengers that everyone thinks about is, like, lots of people have different parts of that original movie they love, but one of the epic moments is where for the first time the Hulk lands, Captain America stands up, Thor is looking around with his hammer, the camera's swirling around him, the group is together as a group, you hear that music swelling in the background.
It's called a hero moment.
It's the hero moment, but it's a hero moment with individuals coming together, using their individual power for a collective whole, with the knowledge that they will go and be individual heroes again too, but they're not going to get to do it all the time, and they will have the best time when, warts and all, they embrace the people that are around them. And in my experience, people that are more and more willing to do that are putting themselves in a better environment. In fact, I don't want to get too in the rabbit hole, but one quick note. I also think that it's important. I personally think that we are a little too invested in the individual hero in life in general. And I would like to see a lot more of, to quote a phrase, we are the change that we seek, and have all of us working together collaboratively, as opposed to just, I'm the individual hero that goes off and does things. I don't think we're supermen. I think we're super people collectively. So to the degree that D&D can reflect that, I think that's powerful, which again, isn't to take away from individual heroes, but I just want to make that point. Sorry.
No,
go for it.
reminds me of. I'll make it super brief, but like I have a really gnarly barbarian who I remember going into a dungeon one time with a relatively new player who was playing a bard, and we faced off against like 5 hook horrors and like a couple of vampire spawn, and I'd killed 3 things in one turn, and they were just like, what am I even doing? They got like no kills in it, and I just murdered everything in the room. And they were like, what do I even do? And then about 20 minutes later, we're standing there in front of a door that I can't break down. And they're like, what do we do now? I'm like, well, that's it. I break stuff. Like this is, and I look at him and I'm like, do you have thieves tools? He's like, you don't have thieves tools? I'm like, I'm a barbarian, dude. Like I hit stuff, and like I built this guy to blender things, but I cannot proceed any further without my party, because I'm not like, you can't build a character that does everything. It's just not there.
And it wouldn't be fun even if you could.
Yeah, exactly.
In my Pathfinder party, we had the barbarian who, like, he was built so that if he hit something, if he crit, he would probably one-shot anything like their level or higher. And even the swashbuckler was doing insane damage. It's like the dwarf, he's not doing any damage when he hits things, but that doesn't mean he's not, like, and the cleric is certainly not doing any damage when he hits anything. But they're not complaining. It's like, oh, where's my turn to do damage?
Right.
What Greg said was really, really interesting. And this is something I'm assuming we have all dealt with as a DM, is where a player either openly in sort of a whining fashion or possibly privately, they say like, hey, when do I get to do something? Or when, and it's like, and I tell, like, I've said this a few times. It's like, just trust me. All right. Yes, we might be addressing this character's backstory thing or side quest or something right now, but that doesn't mean that you don't have a point in the plot. We can't do them all at once.
Right.
Trust me. It's like everyone will have their moments. Everyone will have their cool things. Everyone will have their time, because it's just that sometimes it's not right at this moment,
Yep.
Yeah,
agree.
And there's the payoff over a long time. Like I genuinely, I can be patient with stuff like that, but I've been playing with like same character, like on and off, like almost on and off every day in a 24-hour role playing server on Discord, minor interactions, and he was a complete horrible person to everyone around him. He was a cleric, and he charged up front, like, the Mary could bleed him to death. There's no healthcare system.
Abadar.
Like, I'm just like, like, what's your? It's like, well, I can either loot your dead body and take what you got, or you can pay me up front and I might heal you. And I built him to be sort of against the stereotype as a joke, and I fell in love with him, and he's my first character. I got to level 20. I was super hyped, and but he was the toughest cleric around, and people were like having to pay him up front because like I had newbies coming to me and like, we don't know a cleric, will you come? And he'd be like, you're gonna have to pay me up front because you guys are gonna die, and I have house rules, and I was really rude and everything like that. And then 2.5 years later, my friend finally went, has anyone ever run your backstory? And I went, nope, no one's even delved into it. No one's even asked. And he turned around and said, so what is it? And my first thing was like, well, he's the father of 3. And he went, hold on, he's got kids? And everyone on the server was like, what the? And I got this beautiful moment where everyone suddenly realized that if they'd invested even the slightest bit of time in my character's backstory, they would have realized that he's a dick for a very good reason. And afterwards he mellowed out, and I've played him much more mellow ever since. And they're just like, if I'd asked 2 years ago, my life would have been so much easier. And I'm like,
that's the thing. I want to give Will a pop on this, because I actually think in the Adventures of Middle Earth campaign, we've gotten a chance to see a little bit of that with Will's character. Robar Staunton is this Dunedain ranger who is very much, I joke that he's kind of a Liam Neeson type, but he's very gruff. He's got this dark past. Say again, the what?
I think I pitched you Liam.
You did. You said Liam And I think and I think it's a perfect example of that. Like he's got this sort of dark side to him. There's this kind of really there's this darkness about him beyond just sort of like Aragorn's he's tortured, but Aragorn's really kind in a way, and this guy's not really kind. But what I love about the way that the character has come together is that despite differences between the way he and the rest of the party would operate, the things that he respects still are comradeship, friendship. And he made this big moment in our last session where he said, my friend Inga, this person who saved him in the river that we were joking about before, wanted, my friend Inga said it was important that we come to you, talk to you, and do the following things. And we're going to do that come hell or high water because my friend said this was important. And there's a certain level at which you can respect the morality of a person who has that. He's not a sociopath. He's not a, everything is on my own. His value comes on a very smaller, intimate level in terms of the friendships that he constructs. But it means that it's not someone who's, I'm going out and being my own thing, I'm being all a hero. He is, in a way, deferring some of his desires based upon his friendship with others. And as a consequence, gets to play gruff, but also, when necessary, will hang with the party because that's what the party does. So Will, I think, deserves credit for that. And that's an example of characters that can play still non-party, in quotes, like still loner-ish characters, but still work in a party environment and flourish, I think.
Yeah, it's like when you're playing the Lone Ranger or you play like a Dunedain, they're like, well, thinking of playing a character, I'm like, okay, it's going to be kind of difficult because, like, in the lore, these guys just travel on their own for years, and he's just been literally living on his own for like 10 years, wandering around in the wilderness, just doing Dunedain things, and just fucking Duna whining and Duna dining, and so it's like when you meet Slapati, how does that change? Because obviously you can't just play this guy, because if you were staying true to like character, well, you just fuck off into the woods and it's half free and never be seen again. Because like if you want to play that Lone Ranger, it's like, well, play a solo campaign or go and play Morrowind or go and play Skyrim, and you can get like experience from it. But D&D is different from that. I was actually talking to Trendane and Tarry after the game about that moment, because I was like, I'm trying to play the character kind of contrary to the party's own general, for lack of a better term, and it is a terrible term, alignment. In terms of they would clearly go over a different route in the scene that we're playing, and my character is, he's going to go off and kill people if he thinks that is the right thing to do. But then there's like, but people aren't two-dimensional like that,
Right.
People are very three-dimensional when you get to know them. There are many different strange facets to people that you can't understand by just saying that person is, oh, I kill people or I don't kill people. Things are so much more complex than that. And especially in the game that we're playing, and the way that you run the game, Arden, is about a lot about relationships, I think, and it's a slower pace of a game than ones that you might be used to in terms like it's not a high fantasy romp through dungeons and you're not slaying dragons at every turn. There's like scenes where you sit down at a campfire and we'll talk for 20 minutes about the shadow in the east or something that might be happening in the rest of the world. And for a character to feel like they might be a real person, which I think is important, and not just this two-dimensional caricature. They have to, at many points in your life, you will do things that, maybe if you could live at this perfectly moral absolute, which you claim to have, I claim to be a good person who always does this. In reality, we've all done things that we think are probably, not in best judgment.
Right. Right.
For one thing or another, and often that is a relationship with someone else in some way. Like you do this thing that isn't a good idea because of a friend, or you do this thing that maybe you're not completely comfortable with because you're doing it for family, or you make sacrifice and stuff like that. And to me, that's what was important with that scene in particular. Now I'm thinking about it with Robar Staunton, is that he would place, yes, he is a ranger, yes, he's a lone wolf, but he would place the relationships with the people that he's traveling with above those, because why else is he traveling with them? Why is this lone ranger with these people unless he actually does really care about them, which of course he does. But like, it's something that I don't always think about when I'm playing a character, but like it always comes down to me, why are we traveling together? Is it just out of necessity and we kind of have to? In this case, no, it's because we're all like really good friends, even though we don't agree on everything. And that's the same way with a lot of friendships. Like I've got a lot of friends, like we're not on the exact same level on things. And I'm like, wow, you're crazy. Like, what the hell are you doing? Like, that's insane. I would never do that. But when you're in a group with people, group dynamics are so much different to your own personal life. even just being at a party or socializing with friends, you'll act in a different way. You'll be a different way.
And watching that is really moving. I mean, I find that scene that we had, which was Amal's character hanging out with Inga's character, and Inga coming out with that revelation about the reason she was wandering, and Amal was really like tearing up, like it's just like and it was and Terry was so happy because he's like, I've been saving that backstory, which I knew about for like same thing like you said, Josh. Like I've been saving that backstory for 3 months or whatever, like just to be able to pull it out of that moment, because she knew the time was going to come when it had it, and it makes the moment hit with that much power if you don't rush it. And that's one of the nice things about having extended campaigns. That's the great joy of it. If you don't just have, we play an adventure once every 5 years when we can get people together in the same room, like this makes those sort of continuing campaigns possible. So all right, well, let's we spent a lot of time on that, which is really awesome, and I'd love to talk more, but I don't want to make these guys stay up in forever, and so I do want to kind of make sure we get to some other things. I think we'll save the streaming thing, if you guys are okay, for next month, because that's its own thing. So I think I'm going to save that. But I want to talk about the product review quickly and then get into some QA from chat. So this is actually, it's funny because it comes up because it was related to the same thing. I want to talk about this Mirkwood campaign. I brought this up before. Let me grab the book. Hold on. Mirkwood campaign.
It's just out of reach right now. Just getting audio on this.
If you guys aren't aware, we can't see Gregory, so we just assume we're just mentally picturing what's going on.
I think he's going at it with his leg right now.
Right. I was actually punching the side. No, I was actually standing up. Right.
Reaching up to the
So
third shelf with
here's
leg.
the Mirkwood campaign, which I just got. First of all, art continues to be off the hook good. So I'm going to be running, hopefully, if all goes well, I'm going to be running Will and the rest of the AME crew through this after we get done with Wildland Adventures. This is a 30-year campaign in game time. Not in real life, but in game time. 30 years. Like, you can, they say, they're like, probably will get married, have children during this campaign. I'm like, what? Like, I understand like an epic adventure, but it's an epic adventure that may last a lot of sessions, but it takes place over like a year, or an epic session that lasts over a couple years. Find me a D&D campaign that's like 30 years of time. Like, I can't
30
even.
years later.
Oh my God! Like just
Chapter 2.
It travels from the beginnings of Dol Guldur to the reappearance of the Necromancer with a blah blah blah. Like just what? It is so cool, and it's an example of when we talk about the idea of a slower burn. Part of the reason I do that, and of course I adore Tolkien, as I know Will's a big fan too, but part of the reason that I do that is because Tolkien's world is so enormous, and there's so much history, and there's so much lore. It's so rich that it can sustain 30 years. Like I've played in D&D campaigns that I don't really know if the world could sustain 30 years of it. Like I kind of feel like you get past a couple years and everything's held together with glue and like duct tape, you know what I mean? Like there's not really a lot of lore holding up the seams. But here you're like, all you have to do is take Tolkien's copious notes and then just produce it on page in game form and go play. And the idea of having 30 years of a campaign with all of this incredibly awesome, rich stuff that I'm super excited about now, and I'm loving Wildland Adventures, but I mean, I'm just excited thinking about where these guys will be, because this will basically bring them from level 4 or 5 all the way up to the end, like 15, 16 of that. Just so cool. And so I want to give Cubicle 7 kudos because I continue to think they just keep hitting it out of the park on the feel of the world. I know Will's excited because they're doing the Warhammer roleplay thing, and I don't see any way that they could. Everything Cubicle 7 touches is good in terms of its feel. People have played the Doctor Who role-playing game from them, says that it's awesome. I have another friend who plays the Lone Wolf game with them, says it's unbelievable. And I know for a fact, because I played it, that they've got AME nailed. So, and of course they do the One Ring as well. So I feel like it's very unlikely that they wouldn't nail the feel of Warhammer also just because of that, but they just get the tone so well. So I want to give them a pop, not just because they sponsor me, but because Mirkwood campaign is so awesome. So yeah, anyway, I've been so excited when I actually got this book, and it's one of those things where I'm like, I'm excited, and I'll come back to this, a year from now when we actually get there after playing through it. But still, I still think it's
on the list.
It's on the list. Yeah. Do you guys have any product that you have gotten, or book or something else that you want to chat about of late that you think is cool? Or service, if there's an online thing you've been using, you're like, oh my God, this is awesome.
I can't talk about that.
No. Very well. Yes.
I
It's in 4K. That's all I can say.
Yeah. I don't have anything sort of with regards to that, but I do have. And sorry to bring this up and embarrass you, Will, but I'm going to talk about saying how great you are. So like,
Oh, good.
it's going to be.
No, that's fine.
Oh,
I
how
wanna-
great he is! Let me just brownie.
Yeah, if you guys are
Brownie.
looking for a good time to go get a drink or something,
I'm having a brownie as you talk about Will. So
Yeah. No, like it just to speak on sort of the long-term slow burn campaign. Like, Will introduced me to role playing through Song of Ice and Fire, which was like the first time I'd ever tried role playing, and I came in sort of thinking sort of real short term, like didn't know what I was doing, trying to figure out sort of like what I was going to do with my character on like the day to day. And our campaign is currently run for in game. It's been 12 years, I reckon, somewhere around that. And it's just
Yeah.
the world goes on, and it is partly because like George R.R. Martin's world is fascinating, but at the same time, Will did like crazy stuff with it. That like to the point where this is going to sound sort of this will piss a lot of people off on the internet, but I actually prefer Will's story and how it's turned out and what it's been written to like the show, to the books. Like, and I haven't finished the books yet, but like there's a
neither
lot
is George. Hey-oh! Sorry,
Yay!
that's sorry.
There it is.
but, yeah,
Love you, George.
there's so many interesting developments that you could pick up the way, like finding someone that you know you're going to find a relationship with in the game, and then building that, and also having sort of, you know, kids. And like, I went from having a rogue to building him into like a fighter, because we were prepping for a war, and he went from being like a rogue to I had to like power build him into like a fighting with a greatsword. But we had like a 5-year gap, and loads of stuff happened, and it was developments of cities, changes in power, and that for me was so interesting to do, because it was like I mean, we used to joke about it because our friend got so into it, and we were just like, this is real estate simulator, like this is just the most insanely in-depth thing he's gone into. But at the same time, like I love the concept, and I'd be really excited to have a look at Mirkwood and stuff like that, because stuff like that has the potential, gives you an investment, not just in your character, not just in the local, but it can give you a worldwide investment in sort of politics and everything. And I think it's really interesting, because then you get stuff like come up, and you're thinking on a whole different scale of things, which has really helped me going forward with world building myself, of just having to think on that scale, and then think to myself like, okay, so I'm building a world at the moment. Well, you know, what problems can there be? There don't need to be dragons. Maybe it's fucking maybe it's food shortages. Maybe, you know, it's, you know, problems with water. Maybe it's, you know, problems with the people with this, like, and that, and there's just so many interesting things you can build upon. So I'm super excited to, yeah, I need to have a look at Mirkwood, absolutely, because that's my kind of like bread and butter. Oh,
It's just so good. Like I just, oh man, it's, you know, and of course the part of it is it's for those of us who grew up with it being as important as it was. It's one of those things that just you know, I mean, like I, you know, without getting too much into it, like I think the reason that I write fantasy, and the reason that I teach it, and the reason that, you know, a portion of my life is the way that it is based on those books. It's based on Tolkien.
Yeah,
it's based on stuff from my father reading me the books when I was 5 and 6, and reading the Hobbit book with all of his markings in the margins. You know, it's a little bit of a search for the ghost of my parents, and so there's an epic quality to it, and a sense of history that I think just kind of underpins it, that is not easy to do or replicate in game form. Also, quick note, that's also why you need players who understand that, and that's why players like the ones that I feel very fortunate that in all my campaigns I have players that understand the kind of game that they're playing, and I think that's really awesome. So
me and Will have genuinely been in the pub before with a friend of ours, James, and we have like, whilst slightly inebriated, shall we say, just gone through like entire speeches from the Lord of the Rings, and just like huge sort of epic, like 1 o'clock in the morning, and they're getting ready to close, and everyone else has gone home, and it's us just giving these heroic charges and sort of
that's
speeches.
badass.
Like, yeah, but I mean, it's something that you know, I've always loved, and I love about these guys was just that. So, but yeah, it's just the rich lore, being able to put yourself in a world and just say like, I want to really sink into it. I want to soak it all in. I want to feel as much part of it as possible, down to the nitty gritty. If you're that kind of fan, if you find something, I think we all have something that we're a little bit fanatical about, like we have that massive amount of passion for. So having that ability for someone to say, here it is, do what you want with it. It's just like, it's like a buffet. And like, I would just stand at that buffet and eat until people dragged me away. Which is good.
Man, I dig it. That's good stuff. All right. Well, if you guys don't have any products to do, maybe we should take some Q&A. Go ahead, but
just D&Dice.co.uk.
Branding, ding.
I don't have.
Hit me. Ask him what you got.
I don't have any new products that I want to like go in depth about, and I'm not going to go in depth about anything. But if you guys have not checked it out, the Mouse Guard is a fantastic game. I just got the actual rule book. I haven't had it since I've started playing. And if you're a fan of fantastic illustration and also a goddamn good game, I would highly suggest you check that one out. Also, shout outs to Curse of the Crimson Throne is the best adventure path that Pies has ever published.
Oh man, I've heard so many good things about Curse of the Crimson Throne. Yeah, it's.
I'll take you through it one day.
That's cool.
It's the best.
That's cool, man. All right, well let's grab some questions, gentlemen, so we can make sure that we got about 15-20 minutes left. All right, so chat, the way that we do this here is to throw a question at us. You can do just capital letters, all capital letters, question, colon, and then throw the question at me. Not lewd questions. Not lewd questions.
The questions at his colon.
Yeah, throw the questions at my colon, directly at my lower intestine. Throw it right there. So that I can. I don't know.
Job.
Yeah. Oh, I see. Yeah, I see what you did there. But throw a question at us. If you got questions about DMing, round tabling, or any kind of that thing, streaming, face to face, table rounding, stuff like that.
A good belt sander will help.
Yeah.
Cute. That's cute. That's cute. Lay it on us if you got questions.
Oh God.
That was my biggest waste of time in high school, was wasting. I could have been doing drama, and instead I took wood shop that one semester, and all I made was a shelf with rounded corners. I've never done anything with wood. You mean a box? Did it have rounded corners?
I
think it was square.
This is completely. While people are just posting questions, like this is the funniest. I just always remember this from graphic design. My friend, we used to have this teacher who used to stand with like one leg up on the desk in like a lunging motion, and he'd always it was really creepy, but he'd always be talking to people. And we were on the front row, and my mate used to just we'd keep our heads down, just try to avoid looking, because it was really not okay. And one day, he's sketching a platform to display the Ford F2 Boss Mustang re-release special edition, 50 anniversary, whatever. And as he's designing it, he's designed this big sweeping column with the Ford logo on it, and then this pillar holding it up, and the Ford would be underneath. And I literally had a look at it, looked up, looked down again. I was like, you've just drawn his leg sweeping up, and then the Ford logo is where his crotch would be. And he literally, he'd planned his entire project there and just, screwed it up, threw it across the room. I was like, I hate you so much.
Now, this brings me back. I once, it was mandatory from 11 to 13 or 14 or so. We had to do some kind of tech course. So it rotated from graphic design to, woodworking. And then the other one was, it was fucking stitching and stuff like that. We literally had sewing machines, and I remember I made a pillow and it had David Attenborough's face on it. I made a David Attenborough pillow.
I'm David Attenborough. I'm coming to you from a pillow.
Wait, where did you get the picture?
This pillow was filed with Batguado.
I didn't sew it. It got it from the internet. I just printed it off and just
a paper picture.
Yeah, an
iron on.
Yeah, it was a transfer, and then I ironed it on, and yeah. I got a good grade.
The only time I ever took wood shop, I don't know why. I was in this must have been this was my middle school had a wood shop, but my high school didn't. And so the only thing, because I only took it for half a year, so the only thing I ever made in that class was I cut a block of wood into the word Space Marines, and I painted it blue and kept it on my shelf for a couple of years. That was all I ever made.
Awesome. The power of woodshop compels you.
I made a key fob, I think, at one point.
Oh yeah, we all made the mandatory key fob. My favorite one though was my friend. Literally, we were all building like boxes and stuff, and I had a friend who was super gothic. She built a coffin. She 100% built a coffin, and I was just like, that's really cool. And she built it like she was given her like a side room to do it all in. Didn't fit through the door.
Like a legit coffin, like a real one.
Legit coffin.
We'll keep her in the side room to build the coffins, like.
And it didn't fit through the door, so she had to. She literally left it there. She was like, "I can't get out of the room," and I was like,
I bet she plays D&D nowadays.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, exactly. All right, we got some questions coming in. Just a quick answer. Apologize if you hear my son, who is up way past his bedtime because he had no nap today and he had a very busy day, so now he's flying off the walls. Yeah, and he's after the brownies. Wily Hobbit, yes, the Lord of the Rings fantasy courses can be part of literature. Hold on a second. For some reason, he's flipping out. The Lord of the Rings fantasy classes are not part of a lit major necessarily, but I teach a course in Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter because Harry Potter and everything equals maximum enrollment. And I teach a course in fantasy fiction, which I've done for a long time. I also teach a course in science fiction, too.
Sell out.
So,
Jeez.
yes, sell out. It's great because then I get to show people that there was a wizard school before Hogwarts. It's amazing. Anyway, so what's the most epic way, Kooky asks, you have killed a PC? Conversely, what is the one that you wish you could take back? I don't know about if it's the most. Oh, no, I do have one. This was not, I swear to God, this wasn't me. This happened in a dungeon where we had a guy who liked to take everything that was not nailed down. He had taken the idea of being a thief literally. So everything was about just taking things all the time. And the rest of the party had gotten frustrated with this, but he's like, but that's who I am. I'm a thief. I've got to be me. I did it my way. You know, that kind of thing. So he ended up, sure, no problem, Wiley. So he ended up walking, they're going through this one area, and there was a pool, and there was a trident not close to it. And so everyone's like, okay, well, we need to think about this because they were searching for this person, and they're like, oh, this is not going to be helpful. He's like, wait, that's a trident? He's like, that's the coolest thing. They're like, but you're not proficient in trident. He's like, no, but it's a trident, is it? So he picks up the trident, and then he gets this glazed look at his face, and then he goes running directly to the body of water. Now, anyone who's played D&D for a while might have heard of a thing called a Trident of Yearning. The Trident of Yearning, when you grab it, causes you to want to immerse yourself in the closest body of liquid. Said liquid was very, very powerful hydrochloric acid. So there was nothing left of him when he was done. And he was, and there was a moment where you could tell he wanted to be angry, but there was like, how are you angry about that? He's like, how could you do this to me? And it's like, you grabbed a trident in a random dungeon. It's a Trident of Yearning. It was called a trap. There's no way to save you. And he was like, he was so frustrated, and he could never explain why. He's just like, the thing, like he was just really, so that was pretty epic.
Like when you've walked out of your house and you've like forgotten your wallet and you're just angry. It's just at yourself. It's like,
right. You're like, just right. There's no one to be pissed at. You're just like, God damn it. So that was my epic. Yeah. How about you guys? What was the most epic way someone has died in a campaign that you did?
I regret none of them in answer to this.
Yeah. I genuinely, I can't think of like one in particular. There's just too many. Like, but that it just comes from playing like in a lot of campaigns. It's like you saying earlier about the snake and turning back at the people dropping inside. I had
that was pretty epic too, I have to say. Yes.
Yeah, but I had one, and it was literally a druid, and he killed the guy next to me because he turned into a spider, climbed into someone's mail, under someone's plate, and then turned from spider into grizzly bear. I just died. The guy it was like level 1. It was just like.
Wow.
Oh damn! But I mean, like myself, I had a conversation with someone the other. I played a pretty ruthless entrepreneur rogue who Will is responsible for, and
yes.
his name is Mr. Undertree, Mr. Garrett Undertree. And he took a lot of inspirations from a lot of different places, but he started the Blackwood Company, and I started it on the Thursday show simply because
2015,
and it worked because everyone else, it was really interesting because everyone got paid 500 gold pieces for that first mission, and everyone was like, I'm going to buy armor, I'm going to buy clothing, I'm going to buy swords and this cool stuff. And I said to Will, like, I want a big tent, I want some paint, I want a big piece of wood that's flat, I want some terrible furniture, a nice-ish desk, and the rest of the money I'm going to pay the guy on the guard, the guy on the gate door, going into sort of town. And I paid him to tell prospecting, because it was kind of meta, because I knew that obviously we were going to have different players coming in every Thursday, and like
this is this is a viewer game where we get people in, right?
Okay.
Yeah, so I was the long running cast member, sort of like Will ran it, I played in it, and then we'd swap around the cast every week with different people could come on and play. And I went, I've got this. Went to the guy on the gate and was just like, literally told the guy on the gate, here's 200 gold pieces, which is more money than an NPC has probably ever seen in his life. Here's 200 gold pieces. Tell every single person when they get to the gate that if they are an adventurer and they want free entry, their cost of entry into the city will be covered by the Blackwood Private Military Corporation as long as they go and enroll there. And I made an army out of people just like, I'm not paying 5 gold to get in the city. I'll just join this mercenary group. And I'm like, nailed it.
Nice.
But he built himself up into like quite a ruthless person. And then I hadn't really actually had to kill a player character for like a very long time. And then one day I had someone who was a real Mary Sue, and he was a slave trader. And he was
this dude, yeah, okay.
No. This was after, because like that was the last thing that I had, and then I had this guy. Oh god, I forgot about that. Oh god. Okay, so yeah, him. Right.
You have lots of Mary Sue's to choose from.
Oh god, yeah. Like
I think we to date we play with something like 350 viewers.
Oh my god.
Yeah, like the Roll20 like needs cleaning because it's just there's too many character sheets.
Purging, yeah.
It's so bad. But yeah, that guy, like he came in, and like I had a manor house with an army. There was like a revolution brewing in the city. I was one of 13 council members. I'd started off as a slave on the run and had built my way up to like an empire, and I was going up against like 12 other councillors, the richest people around in like a massively corrupt empire, and I was stirring up the people for revolution. And this guy turned up one day and he's just like, cool, I have forger's papers. I walk up to the guy of the Blackwood mansion. I hand the guy on the gate my paperwork, and I tell him that they're all illegally occupying, they're all trespassing on my property because I recently bought this in a private auction and it's now mine and they all have to leave. And we were like, what? And he rolled so bad on his deception.
And it was funny because he's just like, I'm his DM, and he just like totally made it up, never talked to me about that. I was like, okay. So
he was then brought before me, and he was just like, well, you know what? If you're not going to vacate the property that I own, I'm like, you don't own this. And I'm thinking to myself, I know you don't own this because I killed the guy who owned this. Like, I don't even own this. I know you're lying because I have.
Look, neither of us own this, okay? And
but I'm the one with 400 plus guards outside and an army of undead displacer beasts and 1,000,001 other things. And I am knee deep in preparation for stuff. And I had plans and I had loads of stuff going on. And I was just like, I don't have time to talk to you. Like, I'm really sorry. Like, in character, I was just like, I don't have time for this argument. Take it up with someone else. Take it up with my secretary or whatever. And he went to the councillors and like tried to stir them up against me. And they were just like, who let you in this room? Like, get out. And so finally he decided to come back and like basically say that he was going to be my best friend ever. And didn't tell Will, but he was like, I have
a clever ruse.
Yes, he was literally like, it's a clever ruse. And then he came back and he said to Will, he was like, yes, I'm incredibly rich, so I can just pay for anything. And he just like, and considering like I told him that I was starting a revolution in the city, and he was like, I've got a good way to become friends with this guy. So he went down to the slave markets and just was like, I buy as many slaves as I can, and then came back and was like, I bought like almost all the slaves in the city. And I'm like, oh, right, okay. And he's like, and now you have cannon fodder for your war, so you can like kill your way to the top. Let them go forth and die. And I was just like, right, cool. So we amassed all of them, and I literally went, so people like him think you're, for sale, and I disagree. So I grant you all your freedom and do what you want with him. And they were like, we kill him.
Wow, death by mob violence.
He was like, and I told Will, I'm like, Will, I have crossbowmen, right? And he's like, yeah, you had guys on the roof and everything like that. I'm like, I call them all down. Like, I have a firing squad ready for him. And he just wouldn't say no. So Will just went, I'll roll for all of them then. And it was just like, roll.
It was not in good faith. I didn't feel like it was like, I'm playing this dastardly villain. It was like he was like, screw you. And it was like, he didn't win. He's like, well, I'm going to do this other thing. Screw you. It was like, all right, buddy, we're trying to have fun here. Like, let's move on.
Yeah, that was pretty.
See, that was kind of a joint effort actually between the two of you.
But at this point, like, yeah, I was just like, I'm so done. But the other one was genuinely, the other kill that I was going to talk about was just a guy who decided midway through, I deliberately walked away to a private area having a conversation with someone about covert issues, and someone was just like, my character materializes in an acorn tree nearby and throws an acorn at someone who has a reputation for not being someone you want to cause trouble with. And I proceeded to walk over and just go, look, I'm going to ask you politely to leave. He told me that I didn't know who he was messing with. And 30 seconds later, we were weighing his body down with rocks and pushed him into the lake, and no one ever found him. And so literally people were asking me, I'm like, yeah, he left town. And everyone was just like, I have no reason to believe you're lying. So he was no one ever went looking for him. And I was just like, win. Yep. Absolute win there.
Askren, throw one at me. What do you got? A person that you epically killed? I remember the barbarian, I think, that we talked about before.
Yeah,
but
I haven't killed a player in a very long time. I haven't gotten a chance to, just because I haven't really been crafting situations where my stories tend to burn a little bit slower than that. The last really, really epic death scene, because I don't even think the barbarian from Pathfinder was particularly epic. I think that was more of just like we all just kind of accepted that was the character's fate. For those of you guys who don't know, Barbarian caught a feeble mind. He went down to like 1 intelligence. He was functionally useless until one of the players executed him. Also, he was a vampire. Didn't help. But no, in Writhing, I think the most epic kill that I had in any of the games that I've been running recently was in Writhing Moon, when the players came upon this eldritch being that lived under the city. Writhing Moon's basically my version of like Lovecraftian gothic horror. And so in this city, there are these things that were called angels, and this is the player's first experience with one of them. And the angels are functionally these eldritch beings that existed here at some point, and some of them still do. Some of them exist in other realms, but one of them was existing under an ancient forgotten chapel in a destroyed part of the city, tended by these people that come from the civilization the city was built on top of, and they've just been tending to this thing for who knows how long, and the players came face to face with it, and this is the first time they've seen one face to face, so they realized, oh, these aren't actually angels, these are Cthulhu monsters. And they had this really weird thing where some of the party wanted to talk to it and some of the party wanted to kill it, and so it came to a conflict. And I wish I remembered everything that happened in the scene, but one of the players just basically, after killing the dude that they were talking to because his answers were a little bit cryptic and they didn't like that, this creature just kind of reacted because it was tethered to these people and they just started fighting it. Like the players ran over and stab it, and they were all like, some of them were trying to get each other off, and some of them were trying to kill this thing. And this monster just starts doing its thing. It just starts flailing around with its tentacles. I'm trying to remember exactly how this happened, but one of the players rolled an attack against another player, rolled a huge crit, just that character was dead instantly. And then that player got grabbed by a tentacle, crushed in half, and eaten. One player got basically got sat on top of, and then the last was the paladin, who was like standing in front of this thing, its kind of petal face with eyes in its mouth opening to like consume this guy, and he's just doing his last stand kind of thing. He even had an ability that when he died, he got to come back at 1 health to keep fighting, and eventually the creature just like used its tentacles and just brought the entire cave down on top of them. And so all the players died. Every single one of them had what I thought was a really cool death scene. And then they all woke up a second later because they couldn't die because they were tethered to the world by this strange ancient. And they had to escape a nightmare that they were all in. But yeah, it was a really, really cool scene. And it was so weird because it was not a scene that I expected to happen, but everyone was coming from a different place in this scene. And that's what I love about horror, is just how you can get under people's skin and make everyone want something different and then fight each other over it.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's pretty epic. All right, one more, unless, Will, you want to come up with one, but I was sort of combining you and Josh together as a character that you killed. But if you got one, you can lay it on me if you want.
I remember one being personally fairly ironic, where I was playing and I'd ordered a bunch of artwork for it, and then we just got the artwork in, and then we all died for a TPK to a Dragon Breath at level 3 or something. Good times.
And then everybody died, yeah.
Yeah.
You know you're in the portion of Reddit that you shouldn't be in when you read about, they're like, so, I felt like my party's a little overpowered because we killed an ancient dragon with one shot, and I was like, you did a what? And like I'm just reading it. And they're like, you killed this dragon. Well, he got really lucky with his rolls. I'm like, yes, your campaign is lost and off the rails. Just letting you know, you don't take care of any dragon, ancient or young, in quote, one shot, unless you are in a campaign that no longer has any grip to reality. So last question, I think, for the night. Jay Angelson says, question, what is the best way for a group of players to talk to our DM about a problem player and or have that type of discussion directly with said player? What's the best way for a group of players to do that? That's interesting. First of all, one quick thing that occurs to me is that I think it is good for players to be able to have this discussion in a calm way with the Dungeon Master. I forget who it was that said this. It might have been Askren. You might have said this a few months ago, but we are not mind readers, and we are very busy when we're trying to run games and trying to do everything else that we're doing. So we have no idea in many cases that there's a problem. I mean, we try to read the room, but we often will have no clue whatsoever that something is wrong unless you tell us. So talking to us about a player that's causing an issue is something which can be very helpful to us. However, I will admit it is our job as the Dungeon Master to address these problems with party dynamics. But if you as a player can sit down with the person, almost like in sports, sometimes they have what they call players-only meetings where they don't have the coaches. They're like, you know what, guys, we're playing like crap. It's not the coach's fault. You wake up. Like, you should have been, you should have been like posting up a lot better than this. Your defense is terrible. Get out on the perimeter. What is wrong with you? Like basically just chatting with people and being like, this is what players do with players. Quite frankly, I'll just speak for myself, but I have a feeling that my co-hosts here will agree with me. The idea of not having to deal with an issue because you guys have resolved it yourselves is tremendous. Like, that is, we do not want to have more things to do. So if you can resolve the problem in a mutually beneficial way where everyone feels okay about it, great. However, that's not absolutely your responsibility. So if, you've had a chance to chat with a person and it hasn't worked out, or you feel uncomfortable about a particular thing, then yes, coming to talk to the Dungeon Master and saying, this is how we're feeling about a particular player's issue with, I don't know, monopolizing or min-maxing or whatever the case may be. Is there anything we can do to fix that problem? That's important. And one last thing I'll say, and then I'll shut up. It's really important that you do this before it becomes such a problem that you're thinking about leaving the game. That has happened to me in a couple couple of occasions, not when I was DMing, but when I was playing with other people some years ago. That's really, really painful when it comes out of absolutely nowhere and no one had any idea except for you and maybe this other person that you were planning on doing it. Do not get to the point where you're so frustrated that you're just going to bail. Please, please, please come talk to us or the other player, but come talk to us before you get to the point where you're too frustrated. So that's what I would say about advice for players to players. What do you guys got?
Two things real quick on this subject. First, Will actually said this before, and I want to reiterate it because it was I thought it was so important. But and you basically just said it with the sort of the mind reader thing. We as DMs unfortunately get stuck with the job of playing mediator a lot. Of sort of having to make sure that a group of people who have their own disparate personalities and desires and things like that get along, and when they sort of have disagreements or they start rubbing up against each other, not in the good way, we have to
that's another thing we have to step in and address if it happens.
I personally always do.
No.
Not if you're doing it yourself, Will, okay? I mean,
but we, and I don't know about other DMs, but I can honestly tell you it is the thing that I hate the most. I don't like doing it. I don't want to play the adult in the situation, right? Like, I don't want to have to. And I don't think anyone enjoys kind of having to sit people down and be like, okay, now you say your side and you say your side, and I have said this, and I agree with your thing that players should definitely be able to talk. Like, players should never treat the DM like the adult in the situation, right? The only one with responsibility.
Correct.
I say this all the time. We are all adults. We are all responsible for our own interactions with everyone.
Yes.
And that is like, if you don't understand that concept, I don't think you understand the concept of being in a group. But I
that
feel
was
like
such a good point. I'm going to eat a brownie.
Okay. Well, enjoy it. I hope it's the best brownie of the bunch.
Brownie points.
So good.
Oh geez. But I feel like I've said this a million times. This is the last thing I'll say on this is I call this Askren's rule number 1, but that's because I say it so much. Any situation that can't be resolved by sitting down and talking about the situation like adults, or any solution that doesn't involve sitting down and talking like an adult, is not a solution, right? If you guys can't sit down and just say, hey, what's your issue? How can we get past this? And it's just going to be a fight, or then I think then you've already gone past the point of no return at that point.
I should say that this is the case even if you're required to adult. I mean, I believe, although correct me if I'm wrong, that I'm the only one of us with children. And I have...
that you know of.
Yeah, that I know of. Well, I mean, listen, if you guys want to reveal things, I don't know. But I, 2 kids below the age of 10. So I've had to play the referee game, not between them, but sort of deal with, okay, let's talk about the feelings here. And of course I'm a day job is I'm a professor. So I deal with this with young people. I've been teaching for 20 years plus. I don't dislike that. The problem is that because I do it on a regular basis in everything else, I'd rather not also do it in this. You know what I mean? Like I'm kind of all patiented out when I get done with it with my class, with my children, with my, and there's a certain point where I'm just like, can we all just get along and talk as adults, and I couldn't agree more with Askren. Like, we are all adults, so sometimes because we are the ones telling the story, we are looked on as the automatic authority figure. That does not mean that we therefore are the only ones capable of rational speech. Like, you are also capable of rational speech and be the change you seek by talking to players if you have a concern with them, especially if it's a thing just between you and one other person and it really is kind of a sort of a personality conflict. Working that out before it comes to us is valuable. The only point I wanted to make was, but that doesn't mean that if you get to the point where you're really uncomfortable, for example, if there is an issue, for example, Will brought this up, of a female player being uncomfortable with a male player or something like that, that is not something that the female player should be required to address on her own. Like, that is our job. And I do think it's important, hopefully, that we can see it before that becomes an issue and we can kind of head that off.
I think reading the room.
Reading the room is important, but leaving aside that and just sort of the typical, I wanted that treasure, why do you get the treasure and I don't get that treasure, that little 5-year-old stuff. Yes, that would be great if you guys could handle that without bringing us in. So.
I mean, but even in the issue of someone being uncomfortable, like, I feel like everyone's responsible for their own you take responsibility for your own well-being, right?
Yes.
And
For
that
clean
means,
up your own side of the street.
right,
Really.
if there is an issue in the group, right, you can't, like, nothing is going to change if you just sort of sit there with your hands folded and wait for someone else to notice, because we're not mind readers. Sometimes we don't notice these things, right? Especially if you're pretending nothing's happening. And this is also just another side point, but I remember Trendane did this once. He blew up in character on a show once, and I was, after the stream, I'm like, "Hey man, is everything cool?" He's like, "Yeah, no, it's fine. Like that. I don't want you to think that was like me and this player not getting along. That was just a character thing." Check those moments out sometimes, because it could go either. It might be both.
Agree. And there's nothing wrong with double checking with the players just quickly to be like, everything cool? Like, just quickly, and you don't have to make a big thing of it, and that's all. It's about building trust, and if you can do that, that's a good way to go. Okay, unless Will or Josh have anything to say about this, it is getting late, so I want to let these guys get to bed because it's super, super late. This has been a really good show, though. I'm really glad that we had a chance to do this and that you had good questions for us, Chad, and that you were hanging out with us during this wonderful time. And thank you, by the way, Ashera, for supporting the Patreon in the middle of that. I did thank you in chat, but I wanted to thank you publicly as well. Thank you. You are the best. Thank you to all those of you who support the stream in so many ways. I will move in the opposite direction this time. I guess I will start with, I introduced Josh last, so I'll introduce you first. So Josh, thank you again for coming on short notice. Really great stuff today. Where will the fine people see you next?
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure. You can find me on Encounter Roleplay on Tuesdays. I'm really bad with like intercontinental times, so
5 Eastern.
There we go. 5 p.m. Eastern.
Spoken like a man who's had to navigate this a few times.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. 5 p.m. Eastern, doing the Long March. We're in season 2, but if you want to get involved, season 1 is all online, and season 2 is also online, so you can binge that. Speaking of things that you can binge, if you like dark, gritty fantasy and are looking for something that's a little different, low magic, really interesting and very focused on characters and very character driven, check out Turncloaks, which is my absolute pleasure to be a part of. I'm lucky to say, like, I've got the dream team with me, and it's written by Will, who is just masterfully crafted the entire thing. Other than that, I've got a few projects coming up, but in the meantime, the only thing I've got coming up now is my bedtime, because I am.
Because you're tired.
I am so tired.
Thank you guys for sticking around. I hate time zones quite a bit, but thanks, dude. Pleasure to have Josh on, as always. Thank you, sir. Askren, where will the fine people see you next, sir, on one of your many awesome things?
I don't know where you will see me next. Hopefully it is not downstairs in my kitchen where I go to make some food after the show. But I can't fault you if that is your choice. No,
I think you can fault them, actually. That's really creepy, and they shouldn't do that.
Like, I think they were restraining orders.
Yeah, I mean, like, really, like, he's like, well, I don't blame you if you're stalking me. No, blame them for stalking you.
But you can't sue me. You can't prove it.
I was gonna say, just be stealthy about it. No, I'm gonna be. You will always catch me over on the Twitch channel Exploding Dice. You can see my name is in chat. Hi everyone, thank you guys for hanging out. Always super fun getting a chance to talk DM stuff, hang out on Arv's channel and with these awesome dudes. The next thing that you will see me on is playing a Ratfolk Druid on the Daubers tomorrow, which is a whimsical fantasy adventure written and drawn by my good friend Daryl. We are having a special new player joining us. It's going to be a ton of fun. Thursday, we've got Razor Coast as an all-female pirate campaign. Friday, we've got more Venture Maidens on the D&D World Series. Saturday, we've got Writhing Moon, our open legend horror campaign, which is ramping up to the most Lovecraftian of final arcs. And then Sunday, we've got the DM's table, where I do basically this, but with it's less cool. The people are just as cool. It's with me, so it's less cool. And then we've got Mouse Guard at later in the night, and it's a lot of stuff, and I hope you guys enjoy it, and thank you guys for hanging out.
Quick note, that Mouse Guard campaign, dude, the thing that was going on with the ferret and the corpses of the stuff was legit. That was
Such a good
super legit.
episode.
Yeah, I caught a good half hour of that, and I was just like, sometimes as a DM, you get a character like that. Maybe we can talk about this next month. You get a character, and man, you just are like, I'm just gonna ride this character all the way home because this guy is
Yeah.
awesome. So I was digging that ferret. Anyway, that was cool. Thanks, Astrid. Good stuff as always. Last but certainly not least, sorry, Will, for keeping you up late, you and Josh both. But Will, where will the fine people see you next, sir?
It's about to be 4:20 here, so I really have to get off. Yeah, you find me doing everything in calendar roleplay, Twitch.tv, Twitter, and everything like that. We got 8 Twitch shows a week, 9 YouTube shows a week, 3 podcasts a week, 7 website articles a week. In fact, 9 Twitch shows because I'm on your Twitch show as well. And this one, once a month. So you find me. It's no fun.
Welp.
Safe search off. Preferably, turn off safe search, Control Shift N, go into like incognito mode, bring a pack of happy tissues,
Jesus.
and
I'm gonna call it a night there before he.
this is all brand.
Woo! All right, look at the time. Thank you, Will. Thank you, Josh. Thank you, Asker and Chat. Can we get some love for the guest today? For our guest, Josh, and of course for my regulars, Will and Asker. You guys the best. Gentlemen, I will see you all on various things, but I will catch you, of course, on this show next month. Thanks, guys, and I will catch you guys later. Bye-bye. Bye. There we go. Yeah, they need sleep in the worst way. So do I, actually. I got work. I got to get some done, and I got to get some sleep today because I've been streaming a lot today, a whole lot. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed that. I really enjoy the Masters show. It's always cool to be able to talk with people who are also dungeon mastering and have different experiences than I do, but also have a lot of common elements about it as well. So all that is always neat and fun and good stuff. Yeah. So I want to remind everybody, by the way, in case you're wondering, like, wow, this is a cool show. Are there other things like it? Yes, there are. And they start on Friday with this. That's right, this. There's all back of this. That right there are our players that will be playing Esper Genesis, our new 5th edition science fiction, 5th edition rules-based science fiction game. Basically, Phantasy Star meets Mass Effect with some Star Wars thrown in. These 4 players will be joining myself as the game master and Rich Lescouflair, who is the lead developer of the game, on Friday the 23rd as they go through some character creation and begin Eos Keldor, the fall of Eos Keldor. It's going to be really, really cool. I'm really excited about it. It's going to be a really neat, it's a really good system. I think he did a good job of it, so I'm really looking forward to it. It should be fun times. And that thunderclap, and thank you for bringing it up, Flamin. That thunderclap is the way that we're building interest in it beforehand. And if you haven't already done so, it would be a real help to me if you guys could jump in. We got 104 of 100 people supporting. The more people that we get on board this thunderclap, the more sort of initial burst we're going to get of interest in the Esper Genesis session. So if you could sign up for that over there, it would be great. There's no money involved. There's no data mining or email lists or anything like that. It's just a one-time only thing, but it would definitely be a big help if you could sign up for that. It will send out a tweet or a Facebook or a Tumblr post. I think it's Tumblr post. Tumblr? Yeah, Tumblr post from your account with this one single tweet that you'll see up there, one time only, and that's it. Completely legitimate, long service that's been around for a while now and is doing some really cool stuff. So I've been very happy to see that campaign continues to move upwards. So thank you for those of you who have supported it to this point. I think that we are going to do a raid tonight because we have a decent number of people here. And I want to try to spread the love around. So I'm going to see where we're going to go for that. I know exactly where we're going to go for that, actually. This is a person who... Let's see. Can we head over there? Oh, man. There's a few people that we could... Man, there's so many choices, so many good choices. But I know who I'm gonna raid, because this is a person that I talked to before. So I'm gonna raid up this person. The key here is to wait until you hear my audio outro, and then we raid in one of 2 ways. We raid like this. If you are a sub, you do this. The Arvanauts have landed, followed by lowercase Arvan E, ARVANE, uppercase H, lowercase YPE. If you are not, then Hobbit Thunderclapped. What's that? Oh, thank you guys. 2 more people signed up for it. Thank you so much, guys. I really do appreciate that. Thank you. Much love. Best community, man. The best community. My community in specific, and also tabletop in general, is just the best. You guys are awesome. Thank you, thank you. And then the other thing, if you are not a sub, is the Arvanauts have landed, followed by Twitch raid, lowercase Twitch, uppercase raid. But the key is not to do this until you hear my audio outro. Once you hear my audio outro, then you should let that drop like a mighty stream in chat and show them some love, because we like to do organized raids over here, which is really, really cool. I want to thank everyone who made this an awesome stream tonight and remind you all about ways to support the stream. Please follow the stream if you haven't done so already. Please check out the YouTube with !ArvTube, Discord with !Discord, the Twitter with !ArvTweets. Please check out the shop with merchandise for my flagship Infinity and Beyond D&D campaign that's playing the Rise of Tiamat. You can find that at !ArvShop. You can also check out, of course, my Patreon, which we were nice enough, Ashera was nice enough to pledge to today. That's !Arvtreon. You can get a lot of cool stuff for yourself, a lot of cool stuff for the channel, so thank you so much, Ashera. And of course, the sub button, which is that thing you can find up there, that purple button above the window. We are building up on our subs, up to like 33 or 34 subs now, I think, so the more support that we can get, the better, so that would be awesome. And last but certainly not least, that Thunderclap that I mentioned. Please continue to support that. That would be super awesome and really useful and all that kind of good stuff. Now, we're going to do this raid, but again, don't do this until you hear my audio outro. I want to thank everyone who made this an awesome stream tonight. Thank you to my wonderful mods, Chaotix, 10 of Clubs. Thank you to my wonderful subs, Hillness, Kooky Canuck Nonstop. Thank you to my Patreon supporters, which are Chaotix, 10 of Clubs, Hillness, and I believe Nonstop is in there also. Thank you to my wonderful viewers. Thank you to Ashera. Again, thanks again for the Patreon support. Thank you to Brandhauser. What's up, man? Thank you to ECAG, to Electrical Skateboard. Thank you to Arenth. Thank you to Flaming Heron. Thank you to Jagtris, Jangleson79. Thank you to Laura Lania. Thank you to Mr. Mano, PKD Fan, Poltergeist Zero. Thank you to Satyr187, Scorpion, Spakio, Spurious. Thank you to Stumpomatic. Thank you to you, Christensen, Uncle Elias, Valerian Gamer. Thank you to Video Store Cowboy, who I talked about today a couple times. Thank you to Wigmoose. Thank you to Wily Hobbit. And thank you to Xterm. You guys are the best. Now, we are going to go over to this place. Again, don't do this until you hear my audio outro. Once you hear my audio outro, please go. Here, we're going to go over to Tasty Chai, who played with me earlier today. She's a fellow GOG streamer with me, and earlier today she played on the Tomb of Horrors and took a silver medal. She survived the second last player to die, so she did a great job. Character to die. She did a great job, and she's playing some rhyme. So let's go over there and give her some love. She was a lot of fun, and we should go give her some love and check that stuff out. That's it for me. I'll be back at you guys Friday night at 8 p.m. Eastern for the Esper Genesis debut. Please don't miss that. It's going to be really important for the channel, and I'm really excited about it, and I think you guys will love this system as much as I do. So please make sure to stop by for that. Please make sure to support the Thunderclap if you haven't done so already, and please support all the things that you know how to support: following, subbing, checking out the Patreon, and so forth, and the shop. And thank you most of all for being here and tuning in. You guys are awesome. Love you all. Best viewers on Twitch. Everyone, I'll talk to you in a couple of days. Until then, be good to each other. Have a good night.
What do you remember when the world was fresh and new? When it all seemed clear to you? When your aim was straight and true? Were your mind untroubled by the questions in the dark? Content to play your part, open pathways to your heart? Were your life untainted by a host of broken dreams? When all your acts were queens, understood all that it means? Could you have understood the way your life was bound? Did you ever wonder how you got from there to now? Oh, yes, you're gonna fly away from here, where the sky grows more clear. passion when you got to see it through. You know you